Thanks for coming again. And last time I asked you about your global activity in Industrial Internet Consortium. You mentioned about I3C, Industrial Internet...
Interoperability Coalition.
Okay, it's hard to say in English
yes.
for me. By the way...
that's why we say I3C.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And would you please tell me by what reason you decided to start that activity, or you are going to start that activity, and it's kind of your motivation.
Okay.
And also, what are you going to expect from the world or company as a reaction to that kind of activity?
Okay. So there are multiple questions in there.
Yes.
The first one is associated with motivation, and there are primarily two. The first one is to engage with vertical industries who have specific knowledge about how their particular business works. The second one is to engage the world. I'd like to talk about each of those. So in terms of engaging with vertical industries, it is typical for organizations like ours, who are only 4 years old, nearly 4 years old, to begin with vendors. Our founders were GE, IBM, Intel, Cisco, and AT&T. That's typical. Those companies do have some system integration experience, of course, but they don't have the deep knowledge of how, for example, to make a car, or how, for example, to connect a microgrid, which is a small campus of renewable energy, right, into the main grid. I mean, they know how to do that. The people who founded IIC do not necessarily know that. So we clearly see the need to engage with these different verticals. And for us to be successful in transforming and accelerating the development of the industrial internet, we need to be able to cross different sectors. So one of the things then that we wish to do is to identify hotspots. So for example, some industries might have issues with remote management. If you think about power, you've got all those electricity meters scattered around the city. You need to be able to manage them remotely. You can't send out someone to go and fix it all the time. Well, that kind of thing also exists in, say, smart cities and traffic lights. So what can we do together to make that easier, and also to enable us to link these things together? So our focus here is getting to the sector knowledge, and then also being able to bring the different things together. And what we're looking for there is commonality. Commonality across the different industries, and commonality across different countries, because we have global supply chains. We need to connect all these things together. That's the way this is going. That will accelerate things. So that's the first one. The second one is engagement. The industrial internet is very deep and it's very broad. Typically, when we say industrial, we think manufacturing, but certainly transportation, automotive, healthcare is included. Once you start building virtual networks of factories to allow a consumer to specify a particular product that they want to have built, and then to source the necessary manufacturing components and essentially bring that component to you virtually, means you have to connect up with logistics and everything to make everything work, right? So you could think of retail as just point of sale, but it's not. It goes all the way through the supply chain. And it's at that point that I would say that it's, quotes, industrial, okay? So we need to engage people, not just IIC members, but users, people who look at, for example, the reference architecture and say, well, why doesn't it cover this, right? So what we want the portal to be able to do is to allow the public to comment on public material, to be able to point to issues, to be able to say, well, this is really interesting and important, and I've been working on this for a long time, Let us get together and accelerate this.
Actually, up until this moment, IIC activity is located in some city, and the meeting schedule is well defined, and the member is only joining that. Only members can join that kind of meeting.
Yes.
But it sounds like you are going to extend the meeting schema involving some other people, very narrow area but deep knowledge people into IIC, and let's exchange knowledge together.
Yes.
To connect the vertically isolated industry and make some sort of new industry area or make better industry segment.
Yes.
Is that right understanding?
That is right, yes. We would not expect, although certainly we would welcome, a company like Honda or Toyota to join IIC. Their business is making cars. That's what they do. And that's what they're good at, and they have all the knowledge. But if we are going to connect those cars to smart cities, because we need to connect them to infrastructure, for example, traffic lights, that kind of thing, then we need to cooperate across sectors to see how those things work. So IIC sees itself as coordinating those things, trying to take information from different sectors, boil it down into requirements for standards, and then to push that back to the experts. So what we're trying to do is globally to coordinate these different activities. Now, I'd just like to add one other thing, which is, yes, you're right that the meetings, and we had one here in Tokyo last June, are one way in which we build that ecosystem. We have regular telephone conferences. Some are bi-weekly, some are every week. I had one just quite recently who had meetings every day while they were trying to finish something. But we also need to have something which is accessible at all sorts of different time zones, so that everyone can look at it whenever they need to and be able to navigate their way through the specifics, right? Because when you're working on one thing, well, there's a lot of other things you could be talking about. But if you are a consumer, you want to go through and say, well, I need this, and next I need to learn that, and then I can contribute there. And so that's one of the reasons why we're building this portal.
I see.